Right, so we are going to just go over 2 questions, maybe 3 from yesterday's worksheet. Mr. King did maybe 5 with you, and there were 15 to do. So we're going to go over a couple of those pretty quickly. We're going to look at some more types of examples with radicals today. Continuing to use multiplication, but actually taking 2 separate radicals and applying the product property. And then we're also going to be looking at the quotient property. So thinking about it in fraction form and how we can continue to simplify those. Tomorrow is Wednesday. Remember, we're at home on Wednesday. So back to that virtual Wednesday compared to last week. So tomorrow we will kind of do a little review together, a couple of practice problems together, separate from the homework worksheet. I have a review posted for tomorrow that we will work through together. And then you will take a short radicals quiz tomorrow after we do the review. So we'll work through a couple problems to review, and then you'll take a short quiz on these radical problems, simplifying radicals. When you come back on Thursday in school, we'll be solving equations, and those equations, the answers are going to be in radical form. So my answer would be 3 square root of 2 or 3 square root of 3, which is why we're working first on the simplifying part, because then our answers will look like a radical. So if you can look at your homework. So yesterday we completed 1, 7, 10, 13, 14, 15 together. So 6 of them were done together out of the group of 15 that you were assigned. Let's look at number 5. I have the perfect squares on the side of the page. Remember yesterday when we were looking at the factors? Right. We were using the perfect squares and only the perfect squares that divided into the numbers. So instead of just using any random factors, those factors had to be from the list of perfect squares. Number 5, we have the square root of 300, which is a pretty big number. So the list that I have on the side, one of these numbers divides into 300. And remember, you want the biggest perfect square. Does anybody know what the biggest perfect square is that divides into 300? Bill? Yeah, 103. So the last one that I have up here, the square root of 100 times the square root of 3. 100 times 3 makes 300. So Bill, the square root of 100 becomes 10, and then we have the square root of 3. So the perfect square that we're using is 100. 100 times 3 makes 300, and then the square root of 100 is 10. So Haley, if you look at number 6, the square root of 500, what numbers would we use there? 105. So then that becomes, Haley, perfect, 10 square root of 5. So bigger number means we're going to have a bigger perfect square that divides into it. Those are the 2 that I definitely wanted to look at. Let's just look at number 12 yet. So number 12 is the problem where we have a 5 in front, and then we have the square root of 50. So the first thing we're going to worry about is the square root. So start with the square root. Ignore the 5 for a minute. And we want to know which one of these perfect squares, let me pull them down again, goes into 50. Well, 50 is just bigger than 49. So those perfect squares have to be less than 49. And we're looking at 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, and 49. And we want the biggest one. Michael, do you know what goes into 50 from my perfect square? Say it again. 25 and 2. Yeah, so we have the square root of 25 and the square root of 2. And then that 5 is just kind of sitting in front. It's being multiplied with the square root of 25 and the square root of 2. They're all being multiplied. Michael, what is the square root of 25? 5. So you have a 5. The square root of 25 becomes 5. And then we have the square root of 2. So multiplying 5 times 5 gives us 25 and then square root of 2. That's it. So don't try and do anything else with it. 25 does not have a square root around it. We already took the square root of 25. We found that 5 times 5 is how we ended up getting that 25 square root of 2. Questions? Are there others that you wanted to go over that you got stuck on? So again, we did in class yesterday 1, 7, 10, 13, 14, 15, and now we just did 3 more. So I only have 6 problems remaining that we didn't do together. Please submit your homework. Easy 4 points here. Any other questions? So today we are going to continue talking about these perfect squares. We're just going to look at problems slightly different, but we will still be using the perfect squares. So if you want to pull out that perfect square sheet and still keep it on the corner of your desk because it makes it a little easier to pull those numbers from, you can. In your notes packet, looks like we have a group of problems. It looks like 15 examples that we will work through pretty quickly together. This is still section 5, 6, continuing to simplify. And I believe it's page 43. If you have the physical packet. So I think it's page 43. Maybe. Is it page 43? Yeah. So the last group of problems that we're going to look at today deal with operations, and those operations for A through E are multiplication and F through J are division. So I have fractions, which means division, and the first two have an actual multiplication symbol in between the two square roots. So it says perform the operation and then simplify the square root. So let's look at letter A. We have the square root of 2 times the square root of 10. When your radical is the same, the product property says you're allowed to multiply the numbers underneath. That's the product property for radicals. So if you have the square root of 2 times the square root of 10, Bill, what do you think if you multiply them together that would make? Yeah, so the square root of 20. So we're going to multiply those two numbers together first so that they combine to be one square root, because separately they're not perfect squares. So the second step is then to get that list of perfect squares, and I'm going to write it on the side so you don't have to refer to my sheet. So here's my list of perfect squares. I'll go up to 100. So now we're looking at the square root of 20, and we want to simplify that radical. So we multiply them together. 20 is less than 25. So my only two options are 9 and 4. Emma, which number would divide into 20? Which perfect square, 9 or 4? 4. So the square root of 4 and the square root of 5. And then Emma, what does that become? What is the square root of 4? 2. And then the square root of 5. So we performed the operation. We did the multiplication because individually the square root of 2 and the square root of 10 are not perfect squares. So we have to multiply them together first to get the square root of 20. And then you simplify. So let's try that again. Look at letter B. We have the square root of 7 times the square root of 35. Nakai, do you know what 7 times 35 is? Yeah, 245. That's a big one. Oops, wrong button. So we want a perfect square that divides into 245. And remember, you want to use the numbers in the list. Not any different numbers that you can think of, but the numbers specifically from this list. And if I start with 100, 100 doesn't go into 245, 81, and then try 64, try 49. But I would start with the bigger number and work smaller, because your goal is to find the biggest number that divides into 245. Michael, did you find one? What'd you find? Yeah, 49 times 5. Nice job. So again, you're taking 245. If you weren't sure, take 245, divide it by 100, divide it by 81, divide it by 64, divide it by 45 until one of them work. And then, Michael, the square root of 49 is 7. And then you have the square root of 5. So why don't you try C, D, and E? Multiply first, perform the operation, and then simplify the square root. So try those couple of problems, C, D, and E. Question? Oh, yeah, sure.
Got you.
Yeah, there's always a bin on my desk. You can just come over and grab one. I keep forgetting to sharpen those pencils though a little better, but I think Mr. King gave you a good one.
It's an okay one.
Okay,
I see better.
well,
It's no Ticonderoga.
well, you know what? The Ticonderoga have definitely gone downhill. They're no longer as fabulous as they used to be.
It used to be a world map.
They did, unless it's my pencil sharpener, which, I mean, that thing is probably pretty old, so it could be the pencil sharpener, not the pencil. So Peyton, what'd you get when you multiply the square root of 3 and the square root of 15 together? 45. All right, Peyton, from our list right here is 45. So something less than, oops, the square root of 49. What number did you get to go into? 45, that's a perfect square. 9n. Yeah, so what did that become then? What's the square root of 9, Peyton? Good. All right, Haley, what's the square root of 5 times the square root of 12? So looking at 60, Haley. Yeah, 4 and 15, which is kind of weird. 60 is a bigger number, but none of those perfect squares divide into it besides the smallest perfect square is 4 besides the number 1. So then, Haley, that makes 2 square root of 15. Letter E, Bill, we have the square root of 6 and the square root of 8, which makes the square root of 48. So that's right here at 49. What perfect square goes into 48? Oh, I missed one. Yeah, I missed 16. So square root is 16, square root of 3. Remember, you want the biggest one. So that's why you start big and work your way small. And then, Bill, that becomes excellent. Perfect. Any questions? Not too bad. The next group are going to be even easier. So division. When you're dividing a square root, that's called the quotient property. We have the square root of 11 over 144. You can look at these individually and really think that this is the square root of 11 separate from the square root of 144. So I can't do anything with the fraction 11 over 144. I can't divide, it can't reduce. but we can look at them individually and then try and use the square root property. Jason, can you take the square root of 11? Is there a perfect square that goes into 11? 4 or 9? No. How about 144, Jason? 12. So you're going to keep the square root of 11 because I can't do anything with that. But the square root of 144 is 12. So it's one of the numbers in my list. Apparently I skipped F because I didn't see that it was there. It was too
That's
zoomed
gonna be
in.
your grade if you do that again.
Yeah, whoops, skipped F. So looking at letter F, if I do the same thing, separate them. The square root of 5 is not a perfect square, so it stays. TJ, what's the square root of 9? 3. So square root of 5 over 3. Really easy, straightforward. Square root of 5 over 3, done. You can't do anything else with that. There's no extra dividing or simplifying. So looking at letter H, use the same process. Square root of 49, square root of 81. Michael, what do you think that becomes? 7 over 9. Both of them are perfect squares. They're in my list over here. 81 and 49. So you take the square root, and then can you do anything with 7 over 9, Michael? Does that simplify? No. So it stays as 7 over 9.
You gotta double this go.
I do, so that I can have them on both sides, right?
Oh, let's go.
In case I zoom in too much
All right.
and I skip a problem, apparently. Emma, what do you think? Square root of 64 over the square root of 25. What's that become? 8 over 5. And then the last one becomes the square root of 7 over the square root of 100. Haley, does the square root of 7 have a perfect square? No, because 4 doesn't go into it. How about the square root of 100? 10, yeah, it's right there on my list. Ugh, rough day today. So, final group of problems, those checkpoint problems. See if you can simplify. And then we'll get to that homework. So you should be done with your homework before you leave class. Simplify these, we'll go over them really quickly, and then we will look at that homework. So the first 2 problems are just the square root by itself. The second 2 problems, you've got to multiply them together first, and then the last one is like that fraction from above. Tomorrow's quiz will be, it should be like quick, simple, straightforward.
Just on.
Yeah. So we will go through those 5 problems.
That would be good.
Review at the beginning of class tomorrow, and then we'll take a little quiz. And we'll be ready to solve equations involving square roots.
Oh, let's go. All right, part A, square root of 12. Square root of 12. Anya, what can we separate the square root of 12 into? Is your mic on? Anybody, help with the square root of 12? Go ahead, Haley. Good, what's the square root of 4? 2 square root of 3. Wonderful. Wow. 24 here. Michael, what do you get? Good. Square root of 4 times the square root of 6. What does that give you? Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right, now we're going to go here. Nakai, what's 15 times 3? Good. And then what number over here goes into 45 evenly? On the left. Perfect square. 30. Not 25. Not 36, not 25. So it'd be 16, 9, or 4. Good. 9 goes in there 5 times. And the square root of 9 is? What number times itself gives you 9? Yeah. You're finding those are 3 square roots of 5. Nice work. Next, 6 times 12. Mr. Korn, what is 6 times 12? 72. What does 72 break into? Really good job. 36 and 2. What's the square root of 36? 6 square root of 2. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Part E, we're going to separate this with 2 separate. We're going to use the quotient property. Quotient. Bill, can we do anything with the square root of 13? Oh. What's the square root of 225? All right, let's get the homework rolling. Oh, let me post this assignment. We'll get the homework.
Take out that iPad, head to Google Classroom.
Tuesday. Oh, we posted.
Okay, so
We
it is
posted.
there, and then Mr. King, if you just go back to where you were working,
Got it.
in the packet, the next slide should be the.
Ooh, yeah. Ooh, yeah. We still got 17 minutes.
17 minutes, 15 problems,
We're gonna get this
totally
done.
doable.
All right, here's what we're gonna do. Since we've got so much time, I'm gonna go around the room. Each of you pick out a problem you'd like me to do with you, and then you'll have the rest to do on your own. Okay? So Peyton, we'll start with you. What's the problem you'd like me to do with you? Seven. Very good. Very good. Okay, what does 20 break into? 4 and 5. What's the square root of 4? 2 times the square root of 5. Good. So that's it. Number 7's done. If you want to take this time also to put a big list on either the right-hand side or left-hand side. 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, 100, 21, 144, 169, 196. Oops. And then 225. That's the big list if you want to make that. Typically, just going from 4 to 100 would cover most of your problems, and then there might be 1 or 2 that will go larger, but I think on this page I only see one that goes larger. Two to go larger. All right, Michael. Name a problem you'd like to do together. 8, very good, very good. We're gonna split this into 2 parts, the square root of 169 and the square root of 225. Use what's called the quotient property. Are 169 and 225 perfect squares? Yeah, so what is the square root of 169? What's the square root of 225? You reduce 13 over 15? Nope, you're done. Jason, next one. 11, very good. We're going to use the quotient property to take 21 all over 289. Okay. Is there a perfect square that goes into 21? No. Okay, good. Can 289 be broken up? None of them work. Do we need a reduce here? 17 goes into 289 how many times? Oh, 289 is a perfect square. I didn't go high enough on my list. My bad. So that's it. It is a perfect square. You done. Good one to pick, Jason. Thanks, Emma. Bill, go to you. Which one you want to do together? 15. We on it. What's 12 times 11? Yep. 132. What's the perfect square that breaks into 132?
I remember, start on that perfect square list and just work your way down, dividing all the perfect squares less than 132. 100's not gonna work.
So here, and you're just going divided, working your way up. Four, how many times 4 go into 132? 33. Good. What's the square root of 4? 2 times the square root of 33. Very good one to pick. That one took a while because there was a lot that you had to divide in there.
Yeah, you think it should be a bigger perfect square, but it's just the number 4.
It's number 4. Okay, going to you, TJ. Which one would you like to do together? Three, wonderful. What number perfect square divides into 200? 100. Yeah. 100 and 2. What's the square root of 100? Good. That's it. 10 square root of 2. Very good. Emma, which one would you like to do together? 12. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. What's 3 times 8? Good. What perfect square goes into 24? 4 and 6 square root of 4 is 2 square root of 6. Wonderful job. They're getting quick. Haley, what number? You got it. We're gonna use the quotient property, quotient. We're gonna break it up, the square root of 15 all over the square root of 196. What is the square root of 196? Good. So you get the square root of 15 all over 16. Done. All right, Nikai, finish this up. Which one would you like to do together? Oh, my bad. All right, we're done. The rest of the time's on your own. If you need any help, feel free to yell it, ask it, shout it.
And do it now, finish it, submit it. Get it done.
Also submit last night's
Yeah,
homework if
last
you have
night,
not
if
done
you didn't
so.
do yesterday's homework.
I mean,
Submit that.
you have time to get both today and yesterday's done and submit them both.
Submit those assignments.
My leg just fell asleep.
Oh.
Yeah. Sure was. Yeah. Yeah, just not. For number 6, great question. It's a perfect square, so you're just gonna write 9. Great question.